Final Fantasy VII has always been one of those things that I wanted to get into like others that I've known did, but for whatever reason, outside of Advent Children, which rocks shit to 9-year-old me, I just really didn't engage with or get into any of it outside of that film. For you see, I was incredibly based and became enlightened instead by accepting Final Fantasy IX into my heart as the superior game. Now, all these years later, with the FF7 remake and now Among Us, and encouragement from many a person, especially my wonderful wife, to finally take the plunge, I've finally done just that. I finally gave FF7 a full playthrough. And I liked it. I didn't love it or think of it as amazing, but I totally get why people do, and I still vibed with it. While I feel Disc 1 gets bogged down by filler and bits that feel like padding, it still has some great moments and fantastic world building. Disc 2 is where the whole thing majorly really picks up for me though. I absolutely love how they handle Cloud and the overall PTSD he's dealing with. It rules. But see, I'm not really here to talk about the original game itself. I like it, but the reason I played it is not to make a video on it specifically. Everyone has done that, and I don't think another video saying Final Fantasy VII is good is necessary. No. Personally, I'm much more interested in the dragon that Square has been chasing for years and years now. That once potent high that they've only gotten hints of here and there. They've been trying to recreate the success of Final Fantasy VII, and specifically the way it has been franchised and how that has taken hold of Square Enix these days. You see, the compilation of Final Fantasy VII is what really fascinates me. For example, Final Fantasy XV was a blatant attempt to do this with all of the movies, planned DLC, the live service type model Square was trying to keep on it, books, manga, side anime. It really is a textbook example of what the compilation of Final Fantasy VII has done, the intense ripple effects it has wrought throughout the industry. So because of how much shit there is to talk about, because I'm going into fucking everything with this shit, or at least as much as is available in English, as some of the novels and short stories and books still have yet to have any form of translation, I'm going to be splitting these into different videos, cramming as much together as I can depending on how much I have to say about them. This one will generally be the things I have the least to say about, the OVAs, Advent Children, and Dirge of Cerberus. Then, in separate videos, I'm going to cover the FF7 novellas, Crisis Core, the Remake trilogy as they come out, and probably Ever Crisis because that seems like the best way to play before Crisis, outside of the Fan RPG Maker remake, which I did try to play, and no hate to the person that made it, as it really is a mad respectable effort and something the person did clearly out of pure passion for it, but I couldn't stand the way the default RPG Maker gameplay felt at all, so I'm waiting for Ever Crisis to cover that specifically since they're just going to be straight remaking it. Because I think I'll have a lot to say about all of those in their own ways. People might be making more videos about Remake, but that game is mad divisive and interesting to me because of that, so I think they'll all be worth covering in this series. I've been wanting to explore all of these for years, but first I thought it would be appropriate to start with what majorly introduced me and many other people to FF7 in the first place, back in the good old 2000s, and what really majorly kicked off the compilation anyway. Advent Children Complete is genuinely a pretty fun movie, and it's pretty representative of all of the issues that I have with the compilation of FF7 so far, unnecessarily retreading of a lot of the same initial ideas and themes that FF7 already covered to much better effect. For me, Advent Children was like super hype when I was a kid. I had the official PlayStation Magazine issue 96 demo disc that was my first exposure to a lot of different games, like Psychonauts, Evil Dead Regeneration,
That's right. Who's laughing now? Who's laughing now?
Beatdown Fist of Vengeance, which honestly was my favorite demo to play on the disc, and this will get a video someday because this game is super fucking interesting.
Hey, what's all this noise? Knock it off! I'm the warden around here, and I don't stand for that kind of crap. I don't get any respect. I got people messing with me from all sides. That damn Captain Chester's no different. No one knows how important I really am. It's all your fault, you and your jailbreaks. That's why I get no respect. I am a victim of circumstance, and it's your fault. You can't get away. I'm gonna make you feel pain like you never even imagined.
Officer down. And the preview featurette for Final Fantasy Advent Children. I used to watch this fucking trailer over and over and over again all the time, until I finally got the film itself and watched it on repeat. I was hyper fixated on this movie and just any information about it. I'd never heard of or even played Final Fantasy VII at all at the time. I explored the bonus features, the little recap of FF7 events that for whatever reason I just didn't understand and didn't get why it was in Japanese, because my exposure to anime at the time was like, you know, Toonami runs a DBZ and whatever Cartoon Network had on. But along with Kingdom Hearts, it became something that sort of formed my tastes as a kid. It's the kind of film that I honestly can acknowledge isn't very well written, and I will go into detail as to why, but I also love it and have great admiration for it, honestly. Like, listen, I have a shitload of problems with the writing, and especially now with how it decides to follow up FF7's story as a whole, but I also fucking love this movie and things like it. I'm a goddamn American Ninja fan. I adore Resident Evil Vendetta's John Wick bullshit. Absolutely die for Planet Terror type shit. Stupid, dumb shit is my jam, and I love this shit for its crazy Nomura energy and vibes. Kingdom Hearts 1, secret ending ass bullshit. It's great. But this movie absolutely does slog along to start, and in my honest opinion, the writing of an action film, and especially the pacing, can be just as important as the action being fun and interesting to watch. So to start on the problems I have with it, Cloud basically goes through half of his arc from the original game again. In this case, specifically, they retread a lot about his apathy and willingness to run away from the important conflicts in his life, which would in turn put other people he cared about in danger because he couldn't actually care for himself. But it's also not really all about that, and weirdly tries to present itself as being about that for him, even though it's more so about him just grieving and not really knowing how to move on from everything. Still coping and trying to move on from the entire ordeal of the events and trauma of FF7, but most specifically Aerith's death. He is unable to truly cope, be vulnerable with others, and let go of all of the people they lost along the way. But it doesn't really go far enough with this theme, honestly. It feels like it's trying to move in new directions, covering similar themes to the game, but weirdly holding itself back and half-assing about every single thing it tends to bring up. They could have expanded upon the little side story with the girl Denzel meets who ends up losing her brother to the geostigma, and they just don't really do fucking shit with her at all once her brother dies. She's more so a plot device to get Denzel to find out about the reunion truck, and that's a shame because while how they're treated does clearly build how fucked the world became post-7 with geostigma now around, I feel like we could have gotten more of a picture of how this affected someone else in particular. Flesh this character out, see how exactly many are dealing with the losses they are having to deal with this uncontrollable pandemic. Like, it feels like geostigma is a big point of the plot, obviously, this deadly virus that even affects people like Cloud and Rufus, but it feels too vague. At one point, it's described as Sephiroth basically tainting the livestream with his hatred, but I feel like there just needed to be more seen and described about it. Instead, they just end up doing the whole Sephiroth reunion thing again, which I'm just not a huge fan of, even if I love these three goofy fellas. Legit, I think Kadaj, Yazoo, and Laws are my favorite part of this film. Like, they're much more petulant and childish versions of Sephiroth because they were literally just born by the time this story basically starts. They lash out, they desperately are looking for any kind of validation and any connection from this calling from what they assume to be mother deep within themselves. It's a call they don't understand, but one they desperately cling to for purpose, just like Sephiroth did. It's kinda sad, but the problem is there are not enough actual characters for any of this to actually hit. There is a moment when Kadaj dies in Cloud's arms and Aerith talks to him and he mistakes her as mother, which is genuinely a really great moment that I adore. It feels like honestly the only real earned moment that is actually set up well in the film. It's sad yet slightly pathetic. All of this pain and potential suffering when all Kadaj and the other two wanted was validation from Mother, but they don't even actually know what or who that is. I mean, they end up assuming that it's Aerith because they don't know who she is. They just follow their programming to do what they think they should. It's solid and honestly effective stuff. My issue with these characters existing is that it's just all in service of having some convoluted way to bring Sephiroth back in some capacity so that we can have a new Cloud and Sephi fight, which, like, listen, I like that fight in this film, but I just wish the story's reason as to why was more effective and enhanced by it instead of hampered. Dirge has the same problem though with a different character, but we'll fucking get there. The way it's set up, it seems that as long as they can find some piece of Jenova, basically, he can come back at any time and do some real fucker shit again, and Cloud will have to stop him. It makes the conflict with him feel endless and almost pointless in a way that's boring and strictly for sequels to continue to have an excuse of some sort to bring him back again, in case they can't come up with any other better ideas and just want to show the two known and famous characters having a fight. And you could say that that plays into the environmental message, and I could see that, but I don't know if that's like fully intentional in this one specifically. Story-wise, the other characters also don't really get much at all. Denzel almost gets somewhat of a character and what look like the inklings of an arc, but it's not enough at all here. The snippets we do get are basically so small, they're almost meaningless, with the best bit of his character work being the scene of Cloud saving him out front of the church after he uses his phone to try to call his parents. They try to set up some kind of clear connection to the plate falling and why his parents died, but they don't do anything with it at all. They don't discuss how maybe from all of the Shinra indoctrination, maybe he has some kind of weird feelings living with Avalanche members at all, if he's even majorly aware of Tifa, Barrett, and Cloud being Avalanche or not. But no, it's just a frame that hints at an idea that never manifests into anything in the film itself. Any semblance of depth or actual intrigue instantly shattered. Aside from those, Denzel doesn't get shit. The main cast generally don't get shit either. Reno and Rude are fun, but they don't really meaningfully change and are majorly comic relief anyway. The best piece of dialogue with them being the exchange where they reflect on their actions in the original game itself and wonder how Shinra can move forward, but after that, basically just being gag characters again. Rufus is a little interesting, but he's more of a plot device hider who is specifically fucking with Kadaj, which is both very on point for Rufus, very funny, but doesn't really do much to show anything about him besides the fact that he and the Turks sure do feel diddly dang bad about the shit that they done did, and if that can be made up for, which is a theme and is interesting, but we don't get enough time with them or with how they're actually pondering this outside of, again, that scene with Reno and Rude talking about it for a couple of minutes near the beginning. It's like on the way to an interesting idea, and in a game maybe it would have been fleshed out more. Who knows? Ever Crisis could flesh this out, but as is, it's interesting, but really not much in the end. Oh, and I have to bring up that the intro to this movie, specifically for the complete edition, not the original theatrical cut, is a fucking mess. It starts about 4 times, all in ways that just one of them would have served as fine, or even just ordering them differently in some sense maybe would have worked fine. Cutting the reference to the very end of 7 and the scene with Kadaj and Rufus would have made the pacing of the intro far less tedious. There's also really no point in showing the end scene from 7 again because it doesn't matter. It feels like more of a vanity thing to show that like they could remake that. Even with those, cutting to the helicopter scene going into the recap immediately was a fucking messy ass move. I get the utility of this. They have to presume that people 8 years later might not have played this game at that time and that a whole new generation audience of kids and new people were going to experience this world for the first time. I was one of those kids. This was my first exposure besides Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 to anything Final Fantasy VII related at all. So I get why they did it. But fuck, they still could have structured this shit far better and trimmed a lot of the fat from the opening. Now, once the film picks up into the second half, about an hour in, once Cloud is back to his general self from the second half of FF7, after a heartfelt and very funny scene with Vincent, and the real action starts. This movie pops the fuck off. It becomes dumb, over-the-top anime fight bullshit. To be clear, not that it doesn't do this at all before this point, but this is when the movie just fully takes the training wheels off and goes full fucking throttle into it. Which, straight up, I super respect. If something wants to be dumb, over-the-top, anti-gravity anime fights, then just fucking go full throttle full into it. It becomes just a straight hour of dumb as fuck anime fight sequences with physics that make zero goddamn sense, but that makes sense for a bunch of superpowered demigod JRPG protags who have killed a literal god of a man to have at this point in time. Neo Bahamut is called by the villains, and they go all out on this shit. The music flares up, they have a friendship throw happen, quick cuts, some rad violence, all until it crescendos at Sephiroth. Listen, I know I complained earlier about it all leading back to Sephiroth, but listen to me, this cut rocks fucking shit. This needle drop is fucking excellent, and I will not hear any criticism regarding it. Like, that's fucking sick as hell. The second half of this film is clearly the film they wanted to make and create. It was made for the explicit purpose of how much stupid bullshit can we throw in here, and how can we make it all just look sick as all fuck. They clearly kind of gave a shit about the story, but had it more as a vehicle and excuse to delve into just making some fun and rad anime fights that people would watch and go, holy fucking shit, that's AMV material. Shit fucking slaps. It's real good. So yeah, I have my honest issues with Advent Children on the whole, but honestly, at its bare core, I do genuinely love watching it from time to time, even if its existence caused a horrible, horrible show to be birthed into this world. Can't forgive you for that one, Nomura. Fuck Ruby. God damn it. With the full context of FF7 with me now, this film is worse, but the action does still hard carry it to just being a fun film for me. It's not the greatest action film ever made or any wild shit like that. No. That honor goes to Police Story. But it's a fun time, and I do love popping this on from time to time. I'm happy it was made, even if I think it's stupid as shit, and the story is an absolute fucking mess. Also, holy shit, this film has a song from Kyosuke Himuro and Gerard Way, and I feel like that is the most fitting way they could have capped off the complete edition of the film. It's just really hilariously fitting. I absolutely adore it. It's the most, like, edgy 2000 shit ever. Like, Square should have just made a whole Death Stranding-ass type features album where they could have gotten bands like Evanescence and Sum 41 to just make more songs. I would have lost my 10-year-old mind. I will say the fact that they have Tifa jobbed in the beginning of the film when she is goddamn Tifa motherfucking Lockhart though is a grave sin that I also can't forgive Nomura and Nojima for. Coward shit. So remember how I said Denzel could have had much more to him before? What if I told you that they made an OVA in 2009 with Complete in order to delve more into why and how he ended up with Cloud and Tifa in the first place, and what exactly happened with him before, during, and after Meteor Fall? This is a story that's based off of one of the novellas that came out as one of the short stories from there, and they just adapted it into a full anime short, which is really cool. I haven't read that original story as of the time of this recording, but we'll go over that in that video and make more comparisons there. So yeah, this is just judging it as just a standalone anime short and just what they did. I was super on board for this, and it's a mixed bag. Let's just get this out of the way. Almost every adult in Denzel's life is just dumb as hell. Just the stupidest motherfuckers on the goddamn planet. His parents run back into Sector 7 and abandon him on some asshole his dad works with, instead of getting some kind of chopper or assistance to quickly get in and out, and they end up dying because of it. Mr. Arkham is a useless piece of shit who abandons Denzel the second his parents die, which could be interesting since the whole story is about how Denzel was a wandering orphan child after the Sector 7 plate dropped, and he never had any permanent found family after Meteor Fall. But they play it up as if this guy was taking care of him at the end, which, no, Mr. Arkham was a major flake and fuck up. Miss Ruby basically kills herself via livestream geostigma for zero reason. Like, legit, she doesn't hide in the big ass closet with Denzel for zero fucking reason. Like, she gets massive exposure and dies after a few days because fuck you apparently, Denzel. She just tells Denzel to hide, and it's like, why aren't you though? Also, straight up, I am shocked that apparently a closet protected them from this, but you know, whatever. Everyone after that is actually pretty sensible. Gaskin dies naturally just of geostigma. Rix abandons Denzel due to Denzel being a little classist LARPing asshole, accidentally undermining and strangely romanticizing a life that Rix had to suffer through before everything went to shit, truly showing the contrast that their lives held. This part of things is great because it actually covers the interesting class divide between the rich and the poor, and how after Meteor Fall in Midgar, the rich rich and privileged who all lived on the top plate have to come to terms with how the poor below, under everything, were treated and seen as completely disposable. And then the short is basically over after that. They try to stoke the fire of Shinra propagandizing against Avalanche and the spin they push to make it look like Avalanche were the cause of the sector plate falling, and as a result killing Denzel's parents, but they still don't fucking do anything with it here, which annoys the shit out of me given that this is the major kickoff to the downward spiral of his life. And especially since he's being interviewed by Reeve at Johnny's Cafe, and that's the framing device for the story itself. His thoughts and how events both affected and played out for him are vital, but it seems like important shit like that is brought up but completely glossed over, possibly because Advent does the same thing and they didn't want to address it at all if they weren't going to directly do it in the new scenes for Complete, or if they were, trying to incentivize book sales, but they could have given any depth to it instead of it basically being used to place the time and just demonstrate that Denzel's life was shattered at the plate fall from the original game. The way in which propagandizing big elements governing your life, and especially the way in which propaganda from corporations and genuinely fucking evil governmental bodies affects the youth and their perception of humanist causes, is a really interesting topic and theme, but here it's more like a footnote before his life totally goes to shit, and it's just lame. They could have done literally any goddamn thing with it at all, and they just constantly refuse to, which is annoying with how clearly important and prevalent it is, and what kind of resentment that would cause in anyone, especially at that age, if they believed Shinra was in the right, like Denzel clearly did, given his dad fucking worked there, and being a child who clearly wasn't questioning authority, he wouldn't have any reason to question anything given his corpo parents. It just ends up making Denzel feel very hollow as a character. I do like Reeve taking responsibility for Shinra being shitty, like him taking meaningful action to actually help people who have lost their homes. It makes sense as something he would do post FF7, especially after his big disillusionment with Shinra as a company. Now the other shit I do really love as well, again, is the scavenger section of this. It works in showing how basically fucked everything was immediately after Meteorfall for all of the surviving Midgar citizens, regardless of class. How it basically dismantled the structure of their lives and united them all together. Rick's and Denzel's relationship deteriorating because he essentially makes a childish mockery of the way Rick's had to survive before everything happened again, and that just really fucking hits for me. It gives me basically things I've really wanted from the compilation as a whole. I want to see how this world fucking operates again. I want to see new and interesting stories that explore things and ideas that weren't really seen in the original. Please, for the love of fuck, I don't understand why some of this shit is so resistant to that and instead is obsessed with just retreading so much bullshit again instead of exploring the new good ideas that they have. Oh wait. No, I do know why. It's money and safe bets. And speaking of money... Hey, what if I told you they took the Nibelheim incident and completely undercut the entire point of it? Because fuck you. Eat shit. I love seeing artists interpret and reinterpret their art. Like seriously, I do think there is a value in an artist reassessing their ideas, worldviews, concepts, and tightening and reflecting them. Shit, that's why Evangelion, and really Anno's work as a whole, is just so phenomenal. The problem is more so when they reinterpret a work of their own and actively detract from what made that original work initially good in an attempt to establish or overwrite the canon, blatantly trying to promote another piece while doing so. Star Wars, especially recently, constantly has this problem now with all of the spin-offs, shows and shit, recontextualizing characters for the purpose of fan service because Disney is scared of actually doing anything new or forward with Star Wars ever since The Last Jedi happened, out of fear that people will get mad at them again because Star Wars fans are the biggest fucking babies in the universe and Disney are giant boring cowards.
Let the past die. Kill it if you have to.
Like, fuck you, The Last Jedi is a good film that's a little bloated, but with fucking stellar themes that Logan also went for, and all you motherfuckers like that shit. Last Order is specifically a mix between retelling the Nibelheim incident and Zack and Cloud making their escape from Hojo's lab. Kinda. The escape part of things is actually generally okay, just kinda unremarkable outside of this part where the Shinra grunts can't lift the Buster Sword at all.
早くしろ。まだか。
なんだ。
ターゲットがバイクを入手しました。今後の逃走範囲の拡大が予想されます。
お前、ザックス。
待たせたな。
Which is just a really funny detail that I think is a good addition to things. As for Nibelheim itself, I'm not really a fan of how they have Tifa find her dad's body outside when a big point of her flashbacks in 7 specifically were regarding the catwalk Zack finds her on and everything. How far her dad guided Sephiroth in, and her shaking mad anger towards Shinra and Soldier because of this. But this isn't that big of a deal, and they do still at least convey that pretty okay. The rest from there is also pretty okay, with an additional dumb anime battle added, and Tifa being more visibly disappointed at Zack showing up for her, and not Cloud, which I do really like as an added detail. But then they choose to add to the whole sequence by having Tifa see Cloud and know he was there and moved her out of the way, which is a genuinely silly fucking decision, given that she was knocked out in the game, and a big part of the story of the original game is that she didn't know he was even there or that he saved her whatsoever. Like, the whole point of the original story is that Cloud's cowardice kept him from showing his face out of shame, that he couldn't keep his promise and became a grunt instead of soldier. Like, it actively contradicts the entire twist of the game. Like, the entire whole deal where Tifa clearly thinks he's lying when retelling the original story doesn't make sense, given that she clearly fucking knew he was there now with this story revised like this. And I swear to fuck, if someone says, oh, she forgot or thought it was a dream or was bleeding out, nah, hell no, fuck that shit. I really doubt you would forget one of the most traumatic nights of your fucking life, and Tifa clearly didn't in the game. Like, repressing bad shit obviously is a thing, and there are things that Tifa didn't see, but she clearly remembers enough to know that Cloud is lying about Nibelheim in the beginning. She has a full-on conversation with him and clearly has an understanding of what's going on, and that it's really him there in this short. It cheapens the whole thing when the whole point of the revelation in the original game was that she had no way or indication of knowing Cloud was there at Nibelheim at all until she sees the flashback in Cloud's mind palace, showing how fucked up he is from everything he went through and all of the insecurities he's held on to. But shit, even with all of that shit, it isn't even the worst part of the entire thing. So the main issue I have with this shit is the original scene had Cloud chucking Sephiroth's ass deep into that pit after getting stabbed through the gut by him. It felt strong, triumphant, and like it was the real surprise Kickstarter moment to Sephiroth's clear hatred of Cloud. Like this normal fucking grunt basically bested the ideal soldier by the strength of his will. It's a great character moment for Cloud and Sephiroth. By having Sephiroth just say, LMAO, peace dog, and jump in himself for no reason is so lame and completely undermines what the original sequence went for overall. It feels like they couldn't help themselves and have this bizarre fixation with making Sephiroth into the coolest motherfucker alive who can't possibly be owned until the writers say so. Advent Children has this problem too, where even when Cloud wins, Sephiroth is just so checked out because he's apparently above it because of it. I just really don't like that characterization of Sephiroth.
Stay where you belong. In my memories.
I will never be a memory.
Like, even in the ending of the original game, Sephiroth is surprised that Cloud himself beats him. But since then, the writers just have to make Sephiroth a very clearly flanderized version of himself. In the instance of Last Order especially, it just feels so goddamn lame. Like, part of the reason the original works better is because Sephiroth is genuinely shocked and is clearly mad pissed that this spiky-haired fuck killed him, killed Genova's boy, who was a god compared to him. It puts Sephiroth's antagonizing of Cloud throughout the game into an interesting perspective. This ego-bruised child of a man bested by this fucking dork-ass loser. When you find this out in the original game, you realize that Sephiroth has been maulding the entire time. Every time he sees Cloud, he acts like he doesn't know him, pulling some, "Wow, who even are you, dude? No one even knows who you are. Who invited you anyway?" Crying Wojak ass shit. You realize that this tough, unkillable god has Cloud living in his mind rent fucking free because he got chucked down a hole like a dumbass by some fucking dweeb. Imagine getting owned by this fucking guy. That's more of an L than getting owned by this fucking guy.
Oh, double barrel here! Blow your butts, the kingdom come! See if we don't.
It's great! I guess this wouldn't feel like such an annoying thing to me if this wasn't the core of this experience. If the compilation wasn't so fucking adamant to retell and retool shit that doesn't need it. Like, I think this would have been better if they just focused it on Zack and Cloud's escape and evading the Turks. It also would have given the Turks they include goddamn anything to do in this story besides show up for like 5 seconds at the goddamn end to promote Before Crisis. I actually think that would have been the more effective story, but I guarantee they didn't because Crisis Core was in development before Crisis was out, and they wanted to encourage more people to play both of those, and they didn't want to be completely redundant, and at this point would rather promote and lead people to playing those games for the full compilation experience. It sucks. It just feels like the lamest attempt to do this shit. Not a big fan of any of it because of that. Also, why the fuck does Cloud have green Mako eyes before Hojo captures him? That doesn't make any sense. Guys, you could still have a cool shot and not completely fuck up and undermine Cloud's entire shit by making him just already a Genova Cells infused dude. It completely flattens the entire point that Cloud was just a normal guy. This isn't American Ninja 3 Blood Hunt, where Sean can just expel poison from his body using ninjutsu.
Cobra.
Cloud is just a dude at this point. I fucking hate it. Listen, if you're thinking of just watching Last Order instead of playing the game, don't do that. I've seen people talking about having only seen this and playing the later games in the compilation. Either wait for Remake to go over this shit, or play the original, but do not bother with this shit. It fucking sucks. Absolutely one of the worst works of the compilation so far. So sad that Madhouse got roped into this garbage. They helped create Paprika, Perfect Blue, and Paranoia Agent, goddammit. They deserve better. Dirge of Cerberus Final Fantasy VII is one of those games that I've honestly had my eyes on for a long time. I would read gaming magazine articles about this game, watch reviews and videos.
You have to watch a cutscene roughly every 15 seconds. Kill 3 guys. Time to stop playing for a bit.
Thank you.
Kill 4 more, put the controller down again.
I was so curious, even though literally my only exposure to FF7 at that time was, again, Kingdom Hearts and Advent Children. Square Enix making a third-person shooter? Like, that's fucking wild when you're like 10 and all you know them for is RPGs and action RPGs like Final Fantasy X and X-2 and Kingdom Hearts. That'd be like Sega making a Sonic game with guns, you know? It's just wild. Then along comes this weird-ass game, billing itself as Square diving into third-person shooters to give Vincent Valentine, the fan-favorite edgester goofball of Final Fantasy VII, his very own video game, telling a brand new story and expanding on his story from the original game.
What could possibly go wrong?
So I don't have much to say about the gameplay, to be honest. It's surprisingly decently put together. You can upgrade and lightly customize your guns, changing the barrels, materia, and whatnot. The game being built for consoles is basically all auto-aim all the time. The reticle highlights over enemies and you shoot them. It feels real nice, which surprised me because, again, the words PS2 Square Enix third-person shooter filled me with a special kind of dread, but it's surprisingly very playable and pretty fun at times. It takes the effort off of aiming and puts a lot more thought into movement and jumping around as Vincent and stringing together kill chains. There's no real core gimmick that makes the game feel amazing though, but you know, it feels very fine. Sometimes all a shooter needs to be is a shooter. It even has keyboard and mouse support that feels super good actually. After about halfway through the game, that's how I played it for the rest of it, and I was shocked at how well executed and how many control and sensitivity options were offered. It was pretty well considered for a PS2 exclusive Square Enix shooter, and getting it working on emulation was actually pretty easy. It's no Max Payne, Lost Planet, or Vanquish, but it feels like it's at least bare minimum trying to be a kind of like Vanquish-y character action game in certain ways with how the scoring and everything works. It reminds me a lot of Bullet Witch, to be honest. Which is a compliment, by the way. It just doesn't have a fun enough loop with interesting enough enemies to really go anywhere major with the way that it plays. It tries to introduce enemies later on that require magic or melee only to kill, and honestly, they're just annoying as fuck. I appreciate the attempted enemy variety, but they end up feeling like color-coded enemies in action games, which is always the worst shit to deal with, and a terrible fucking design decision. And they come in like the last two levels of the game, so they don't have enough presence to actually meaningfully be anything or do much for the gameplay variety at all. By that point, it just feels like too little too late. It's a game that desperately needed a tighter loop, or at least needed to make its movement and shooting even better to make it really stand out and last. But for a first effort on a shooter, it's genuinely not terrible, just kind of bland. If you could play anything else for its gameplay alone, just play Max Payne 3. It's a better third-person shooter in basically every single way. It feels really goddamn good. And I would bring up the one stealth sequence they make you do, but it's just not really worth talking about at all. It's short and it's bad, but again, it's at least short, so it's whatever. So alright, the gameplay is better than expected, but overall it's still pretty mid. So what about the story? This is the compilation of Final Fantasy VII, so how does it add to Final Fantasy VII? Does it tell a new story of its own that really holds together? Oh, fuck.
Vincent Valentine reporting for duty, ma'am. I've been assigned your protection.
No.
Huh?
Why would they send his...
Excuse me?
Oh, I apologize. This is the first time I have ever met anyone from the Turks. Lucrecia Crescent. Pleased to make your acquaintance, Mr. Valentine.
Alright, so something that I was looking forward to was seeing a story with Vincent Valentine. Vincent is a goofy little edge boy in FF7 where a lot of his mannerisms, at least in the English version, I honestly don't know about the original script, are basically played far more for laughs and gaffes. He's a kind of goofy ass nothing of a character who's basically there as a joke. I mean, you literally find him in a coffin and he rises as a vampire. Like, it's very intentionally mad goofy ass, what if we added a vampire to the game, LMAO type shit. But he's also tied to Sephiroth through Lucrecia, who is fundamental as a character for how Sephiroth Sephiroth came to be and exist through her and Hojo, and the experiment they did while Sephiroth was still in the womb. I really dig the tragedy that Sephiroth's life was, in a way, rigged by Hojo and Lucrecia from the literal beginning. They both made the conscious decision to do what they did and go through with all of it, all in the name of the science that they dedicated their lives to. There was no moral gray anything about it really. They were frankly both pieces of shit, and while Lucrecia at least felt bad about what she did, she also had clearly lost her fucking mind due to being injected with Genova cells, so it could have been her mind and her guilt catching up with her finally and driving her insane. It's left fairly vague, and I honestly really like that about the original story. It's a tragedy of sorts, but she also literally brought it onto herself in the end, and Hojo facilitated it at no cost to himself like the piece of shit he is too. He used her, but she also wanted to do it. So how does Dirge handle this story? Well, Vincent, I killed your dad by accident. I'm gonna perform a distancing tactic because
It's none of your business.
But it is. Why didn't you tell me you worked with my father?
Stop it! Just stop it!
Lucrecia.
It was all my fault. I didn't mean for your father to die. I couldn't. I'm so sorry.
Vincent, I'm sorry, but also lol, I'm with Hojo now. Time to do baby experiments. Vincent, feel bad for me because I feel bad about what I did, Vincent. Vincent, why are you asking questions about why your dad is on my computer and why I killed him? Vincent, shut up. Go away. You're cucked now, Vincent. Feel bad for me. I hate it. I hate what they do with Lucrecia in this a lot. I really, really, really do. In FF7, granted, we don't get any of the dialogue for any of this happening, but something I genuinely did like about the sequence was overall her very clear agency in all of it. Her clearly making this decision due to her never-ending pursuit of science regardless of whatever the fuck happened to her. I do think you can show Lucrecia clearly being emotionally and physically abused by Hojo, but also completely well acknowledge that she still willingly took this plunge without any actual care or consideration for Sephiroth or the fucking world. She's a bad fucking person. Like through and through, she is a piece of shit. She's as bad as Hojo, but at least she feels fucking remorse. And for whatever goddamn reason, they decided to try a whole redemption arc thing with Vincent's dad being the cause for why she went to Hojo and do the experiment, even though that feels needless as shit and contrived as all fuck, making it more about some weird shit about his dad and adding an extra unnecessary layer to their relationship to try to make things more messy, and making a huge decision like that some spur of the moment thing inspired by guilt they're injecting into the story, instead of just accepting the fact that sometimes relationships fall apart and people can be mad fucking shitty or just leave for other people and make really fucking stupid decisions for what they think are actually the right reasons, or even just because of science or they want to or whatever. Like, human beings are weird and complicated and fucking stupid, and this game tries to have like the pretense of doing that, but it doesn't make any fucking sense. I feel like it would have been better if Lucrecia was characterized more like a Catherine Halsey kind of character, who went mad after having Genova cells injected into her, instead of this fucking shit. I feel like it tries way too hard to overextend and make her super sympathetic, but ends up making her seem fucking crazy and completely incapable of self-reflection, which I do understand was the major point, but adding a dead dad plot doesn't instantly give this idea any depth or intrigue like it clearly is reaching for, and it honestly makes her characterization worse as a result. This isn't morally gray, this is just fucking stupid. And the way this is just attempted to be weaved into the overarching Dirge story by basically being like, Lucrecia was also researching Omega, which was another super weapon that the planet had, but wasn't activated during Meteorfall because they had no goddamn ideas, and apparently every single story has to have the highest stakes ever, instead of like just being a smaller scale personal story that centers strictly around the Deep Ground breakout and how they're killing people. It can't just be that. It has to be, they're doing it to end the planet. It's fucking lame, and it feels like a lazy excuse and way to make Lucrecia relevant relevant to this plot when they could have just had that be shit that Vincent needed to deal with. But nah, nothing can stand alone. It's all tied together. I don't even think having her involved with some of the deep ground stuff is even a bad idea. It's just the Omega shit that bothers me more, to be completely honest. It feels needless and forced. Speaking of deep ground, this place full of old, failed Shinra experiments that Hojo had buried deep under Midgar, is a really neat idea. Too bad they don't do shit with basically any of it past just plot shit and coming up with some excuse to have Metal Gear Solid bosses, but without any of the depth to back any of it up. Like, I seriously would try to say anything about any of them at all, but these aren't characters. They just aren't. They're boring as hell, one-dimensional cardboard cutouts using some decently rad designs to give you the idea that what they're doing has any real actual meaning or depth, but none of it matters because they might as well be nothing, which is mad unfortunate. Like, listen, I will never complain about the murder horny lady trope. Witchblade is one of my favorite anime. I think that's a rad trope. I love Black Lagoon. I have to enjoy it. But here, they just don't do anything more with it at all. It's so boring. Both of those examples actually give those characters depth at all. They have personalities and more past the murder horny that makes them interesting as actual people. But not Russo. I wanted to love these goofy ass characters. Azul the Cerulean, Russo the Crimson, Nero, Weiss. They at least sort of try with Nero given his whole obsession with his brother thing.
My beloved brother, it is time. Together, at last. I won't leave you again. Never. Weiss.
That's something, but it doesn't really end up meaning shit and is his literal one note. So none of them have goddamn anything to work with, especially Weiss. Holy fucking shit, that guy doesn't even actually get any real actual lines because LMAO, it's Hojo guys, it was always Hojo. Isn't that wild? Like, listen, would Hojo actually pull some convoluted, actually I uploaded my ghost to the internet kind of shit? Yeah, he would. But like, you can't introduce a concept and cast this neat and then do nothing with them and just make the villain Hojo, because at the end of it, instead of letting their new villain just exist, he just has to be Hojo for most of his actual presence, and then when he finally is himself, he gets maybe a line and then you kill him. You get no time with this built-up menacing guy who has all these stories and tales said about him. I don't even know who Weiss is, why he decided to go through with any of it. I don't know why any of this is like this. It's just so fucking lame. Like, is it sad that this guy has been bodyjacked by Hojo? Yeah, but like, I have no context for who this guy fucking is. Like, a bodyjack Invasion of the Body Snatcher story works when you know who the person actually is.
We gotta go! We gotta get out of here! We gotta go right now!
Listen to me, Steve.
No, you don't understand! We've gotta go!
Go where?
No, we gotta go! What the hell are you talking about?
Steve, this is important. Go where? That's right. Go where? What happened in your room? Are you listening? What happened in your room is not an isolated incident. It is something that is happening everywhere to everyone. So, where are you gonna go? Where are you gonna run? Where are you gonna hide? Nowhere. Because there's no one like you left.
So when this happens to them, you feel anything for them. This doesn't have any of that shit at all. It's hollow. Something that should be emotional and genuinely pretty fucked up is reduced to some bullshit excuse to shove Hojo being responsible for this into the story. I actually fucking hate this. The closest analog I can think of with this story is like this being a kind of proto-Metal Gear Rising Revengeance.
I think it's time for Jack to let her rip.
But you see, Metal Gear Rising doesn't undercut itself. It doesn't rely so heavily on callbacks to older things that it crumbles under its own weight. It doesn't look at a character like Armstrong and then secretly make them Solidus again for no reason.
So, what do you think?
How the hell did you get elected?
Well, I don't write my own speeches.
It gives Jetstream Sam actual characterization and pretty solid depth as for what he's doing and why he's fucking doing it. You get an understanding of Blade Wolf as a companion as time goes on, his struggle with being a robot designed only to fight and kill, and if he can at all have a life past that. If he has any actual free will. It makes new memorable characters who, while not every single one of them may have the most depth either, at bare minimum they are memorable due to musical choices, designs, personalities, and the fights with them just have so much character and personality that it more than makes up for it in a multitude of ways. The whole experience is crafted around making those boss fights stand out the most. The ones in Dirge all fall flat, playing virtually the same outside of one or two making you vary things with magic, and Weiss himself is just a computer AI soul copy of Hojo because they're terrified of actually committing to anything goddamn new, and it's really, really sad. If there's anything that I genuinely love the story itself for doing, I love seeing all of the characters again, though. I love Yuffie's pretty heavy presence in the game, as she's always pretty fun to be around.
Who are you?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I am the champion of the earth and the sky. I am the conqueror of evil. The single white rose of Wutai. Yuffie Kisaragi! Feast your eyes on... Whoa!
So, where are we?
Come on, aren't you at least a little concerned?
Oh, Yuffie. It's been a while. How's your head?
Could you at least pretend to be sympathetic?
She also gets some genuinely solid scenes as well. I also love the consistent detail both in this and Advent Children that being on airships still makes her motion sick. That's really fun. I love seeing Sid and being able to explore his ship, cutely named after his now wife Shara from Advent Children. It feels like a nicer reunion than Advent really got to be with a good chunk of characters. I like the extension of Reeves' characterization from On the Way to a Smile, him going to pretty extensive efforts to make up for the awful shit that Shinra did, running the WRO and helping the planet itself heal in any possible way that he can, truly dedicating his life to his work. I really, really love that. I think the way they treat Reeve is actually my favorite, I think, out of anyone so far, because since VII and all of his Kate Sith shenanigans, he did always interest me the most as a character. In VII, he kinda doesn't get a lot. They have a few interesting and humanizing moments with him as a Shinra employee, but not a ton else most times outside of being a mole. It feels like they really go to a pretty extensive effort to really build upon his regret from near the end of the original game, and I really think that's a cool progression for his character. Also, the fact that he just has a bunch of fake hymns piloted by Kate Sith robots with apparently Scottish accents is very funny in a dumb anime logic kind of way. Though how does he control them when he's like just hanging around? Like, I at least get it in the beginning because he's like in some van controlling them remotely, like around, but on the ship, how is he doing this? Or is one of his crew doing it? It's probably that? I don't know. Whatever, that's like the least of this game's issues. Even if it takes Vincent's character a bit too dead serious, I do absolutely adore how much of a shit Vincent does not give to the villains constantly exposition dumping at him. That is pretty funny.
But then 3 years ago, we were freed from our chains, though waiting for us was darkness lit only by the faint glow of Mako. And what do you think we did when we gained our freedom? We killed. That is how we were raised. That is all we knew. And so I bathed in the blood of 1,000 soldiers. And I enjoyed it. I reveled in it. And when I finally stepped out of the abyss, I craved for more. You understand, right?
I don't think so.
and he does get a few pretty rad moments as well throughout the story, even if his overall arc is pretty one note. I also like the detail of him having a cell phone he barely uses now after Marlene grills him about it in the woods in Advent Children, and he asks about it.
Where can I buy a phone?
That's cool and just really fun to carry over. I adore Shallua. She's cool, she's rad. I love her design.
Your WRO.
Who's asking?
Vincent Valentine. Reeve sent me.
My apologies. Shallua Rui of the WRO.
And then the plot just kills her, which is lame as all fuck. Shulk's not as interesting at all. She starts out with some intrigue, being extremely dependent on Mako to survive, and then having been abducted as a child and experimented on, but past a certain point, it feels like not much is really done with her character. I really like the connection between her and Shallua being sisters, and Shallua constantly looking for her, but then they end up just killing her off, so we get no vibe of their connection outside of vague feelings Shulk regains and feels as the story goes on. Yuffie feels more in the actual scene she gets fridged in.
She suffered too much trauma to her head. Unless there's some kind of a miracle, she's not... Vincent! You were there? Why couldn't you save her?
I'm sorry.
No. I didn't mean to... She was a fool. You have no right to call her that! You don't know! You don't know what... Why would she do something so...
And I get that, like, that's the point, but it never really improves. If anything, the plot kind of forgets about Shallua, and it sucks ass. At least, like, Shulk helps out, I guess, and she's essentially the girl at the computer at a certain point, but she just doesn't have much of a character or personality outside of regaining her emotions, which can be compelling, like in Lightning Returns, but here it just doesn't have enough focus or depth given to it. She's also a Lucrecia stand-in, sort of, because she has her data consciousness or files or something in her system. It's another dumb excuse to tie Lucrecia to something, I don't fucking know. She also brings Lucrecia into the final fight by having a projection of her that isn't actually her, but more like Shulk's idea of her. Talk to Vincent, talk before the final fight to give him anime motivation, and also apologize for being shitty. But this falls completely flat because it's not actually Lucrecia at all, so this is actually meaningless as shit and doesn't hit whatsoever. Ah shit, I was trying to be positive. Anyway, Shallua was a real one, and she will be missed. Rip the Queen. Fridge too soon.
Thinking of the day when you went away. What a life to take, what a bond to break. I'll be missing you.
The part where the Gax music starts playing is pretty funny and actually kind of rad because shit like that hits for me in basically any game it's in. The music all around is pretty nice, though again, aside from the Gax stuff, it's fairly okay at best. A few tracks stand out, but nothing ever really majorly pops for me. Like, it fits the game, but it just, I don't know, nothing really stood out. Little fun fact, our good friend of the show, Masashi Hamauzu, actually composed this soundtrack. I found this out while I was editing the video because I just did not care enough about the music to even bother bringing this up at all. If you want to go listen to it, just go ahead. I don't think it's his best work. I think it's like fine, I guess. He's done better, but it's definitely not like terrible. I just kind of wish it was more. It feels like a very like transitory period between some of his earlier stuff and like more of what he was working on around like the 13 games and things like that. Though he's also done good work on things that, you know, weren't Final Fantasy related at all. But it just doesn't feel like it's as strong as those works. But, you know, there's a couple tracks that stand out. But unlike other videos, I'm not going to give it a whole music section because, I don't know, I don't want to. There's, oh, this scene where Weiss and Vincent play a fun game of Nothing Personnel. There's an interesting connection to Biggs' sister, who I guess was just never mentioned in the original game. Or at least she's implied to be a sister, which is fine.
You know, I was born in Midgar. My brother and I used to play here all the time. My mom didn't approve, though. After she died, my brother joined a Shinra resistance group, but was killed when the plate fell and... I can't believe this place is still here.
That's all I got for things I liked, because honestly, this was a fucking miserable experience for me story-wise as it went on. Like, I didn't go in trying to hate this or anything. I never really tried to go into any experience with that, but genuinely, the more I played of it, the deeper I got, the more it either undercut itself or the more it undervalued what the original game did, or it kneecapped itself by using the old game as a very unsturdy and constantly changing crutch. I feel like I was expecting that wild Kingdom Hearts fun shit, but instead, I got a lot of additions I feel like were just unnecessary or just wasted potential. It would be nice if this game got reworked at some point, but I feel like this is better forgotten unless they were to reapproach this story and retool parts of it in order to improve it. I think I could accept a lot of the more really dumb shit if the game went all the way, but it feels way too stuck in trying to be so self-serious that I don't think it ever can reach the heights of pure full-on goofballdom that something like an MGR ends up reaching.
I misjudged you. You are like us after all. Now you're just being nasty.
And don't get me wrong, this game is funny, both unintentionally and intentionally at times.
How about...
Even in a world where fear and despair reign over the heavens, you must never forget, where there is shadow, there is always light. That's right! Bask in my rays, evildoers! Feel the radiance of Wutai Super Ninja, Yuvi Kisaragi, back and ready for action!
My brother calls.
Hey! Over here, guys!
But it also is serious in a way that both bores and just bogs itself down with retcons or exposition. It's sad to see because Dirge had a lot of promise. Like I said earlier, it's not a bad playing game or anything. The story has an interesting concept at first, and it's fun being in this world again, but it just doesn't have anything to do with any of it. Nothing to really say with any of it. It's all about trying to make the wacky woohoo vampire man cool and explain him and the whole Lucrecia connection, and it just completely falls flat on its face. It ends up playing Lucrecia Apologia, convoluting itself to hell and back and unable to fully commit to any of its new ideas. Shit's sad. It feels like I'm starting to get a pretty good picture of what I don't like about the compilation of Final Fantasy VII so far. It over-relies on nostalgia and kneecaps any actually good or interesting ideas by bringing them up and doing fucking nothing at all with them, which is a serious shame given that the world in the original game has so much that could be better expanded upon, or new stories that could be made with time and better writing. I hear the remake is like that, and I'm excited to see what people are talking about once I get to that point. I'm really hoping these novellas and Crisis Core can maybe show me something better, explore this world more, show me more of these or other characters. I want to understand more about this place and how people live, see a new story that doesn't kneecap itself to keep it in line with the rest, or retcon shit for no reason. If all else fails, I know from what I've played of Remake so far, that will at least bring that standard way the fuck up. But, you know, we'll see, because I want to see what ideas they had before that and where that game is gonna go. Oh shit, I forgot to mention that Dirge's secret ending has Gact, played by Travis Touchdown, doing a bad accent, and that's fucking hilarious.
It is not yet time for slumber. We still have much work to do. My brother.
Oh, it's another video done. So, got this one done a lot quicker, which I'm really proud of, actually. I kind of got a better workflow and a better kind of vibe going. So now that I do, my hope is that, like, I'm able to kind of release videos at, like, a steady kind of pace like this, where, like, I'm not rushing myself, but I am, like, keeping pretty steady pace with a video and focusing, like, on things, like, a project at a time. Yeah. For this one, I've changed up my recording situation as far as audio goes. Like, so before I used to record all my audio sitting down, but you might have noticed from the few times I accidentally hit the mic in this video, I'm standing up because, like, I realized I actually talk a lot more naturally when I'm, like, standing and, like, moving my arms and shit. And when I'm sitting in the chair, you know, it causes a ton of noise and shit. But now I can, like, do this and like move my arms around, and it's great, and I love it. So I'm gonna try to kind of keep that up from now on and just be better at not fucking smacking into my mic by accident. I'm also gonna try to probably look into some, like, EQing techniques to kind of make my audio more consistent, because that's, like, the one problem I keep having. I feel like my audio, like, always ends up sounding, like, different across the entire video, or even across multiple videos, and I need to get, like, that proper balance to make it all just sound, like, the same and equalized and shit. But I'll get there. So like I said before, next video is gonna be Koudelka. And then from there, gonna bounce back to do Crisis Core after that, and then it'll go Shadow Hearts 1, and then the FF7 novellas, and then kind of back and forth like that. So yeah, getting the Koudelka footage will not take too long, and yeah, that video should be out hopefully soon, soonish, I guess. I'm still gonna, these videos are gonna, they're gonna take a minute, but yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you liked, you know, leaving a like and or a subscribe is very, very helpful to the channel. Please share these videos with, you know, anybody who you think would like them. And if you are a new subscriber, welcome to the Coven. And if you've been a part of things or you've been subscribed for a minute, then thank you for sticking around. Have a good one. I used to watch the like all the shit on this so much as a kid. The Ultimate Gamer Advisory Panel gig.
That time of the year again, when PlayStation Underground's most elite members, the Gamer Advisory Panel, compete head-to-head for a chance to go to the most intense gaming event of the year.
Oh yeah, today I prepared a nice little routine of jokes and some impressions.
No, oh god.
I'm just gonna rattle on, you know, like I normally do, because I can talk. I can really talk.
Hell yeah, bro. I hope you win.
E3 is my mecca.
First off, you need to come on strong and let us know you're not just an
I'm so
ordinary
glad
gamer.
E3's dead.
I am the biggest gamer.
Oh.
I'm more than your average gamer. I love games.
I'm more than your average gamer. Listen, honey, I shower, okay? I log off. I don't stay up till 5 a.m. playing Genshin.
I have 17 years of airline experience.
Hell yeah, dude. Sell yourself. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. No. Get him off.
OPSP, OPSP, wherever I go, there.
Oh my god, holy shit, I remember that song! I did used to watch this like a ton, because I remember that fucking stupid PSP song. Fuck you, guy! This guy's not funny, do not pick him.
Of course, it helps to have a passion for games.
No. If I'm picking you for this, you must hate video games. You must despise them with a passion.
That it's a dual-core 64-based system that has 4.
That guy has absolutely said racial slurs.
You need to convince us that you have the best reason for wanting to go to E3.
Talk to all the booth girls, the booth babes, and the booth girls.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Okay, that's not enough to get you to
Why
E3.
you want to go to E3?
Better luck next
Titties,
year, guys.
titties. I'm horny. I am down catastrophically, and I want to gawk at dressed up, big boobed women.
It's game time. Here are the 10 luckiest GAT members from both the national and Los Angeles competitions who made the cut for the ultimate GAT gig.
Okay, as long as that one guy didn't win, I'll be happy. But no!
I'm there to represent Tony.
This guy should have won. He should have been the only one allowed to go. I respect King. He's selling himself.